at some point I realized that I'm a professional learner and I want to develop this, and what I don't know, I want to learn.
Welcome to Learn Well, a podcast by New Wellness Education, a podcast about education, about learning, about sharing knowledges and sharing content about our experience as educators. I am Fabrizio, one of the founders of New Wellness Education, and I work in education since 5 years. And I use approaches in formal education, integrated learning, and I like to share and listen what other people do. And today with us, we have here Tisho from Bulgaria.
Hi, I'm Tisho. I'm from Bulgaria, as Fabrizio just said, and I have a youth foundation, which is working in the field of experiential learning, non-formal education, and volunteering, and international training courses and exchanges. And at the same time, I call myself a freelance trainer. And recently, I am also entering a new spontaneously business field of running a small cafe. So a lot of things are happening right now for me.
You mentioned that you are the director of a foundation. Can you tell us a bit more about the foundation, what the foundation do, what is the background, what are the activities that you organize?
Yes, it is called Smokinya Foundation and it exists since 2016. And in the foundation, we're pretty much focusing on three things. One is volunteering, and we host EDS long-term volunteers, or now it's known as the European Solidarity Corps. We are doing training courses and youth exchanges in the context of Erasmus Plus program. And the third thing is that every now and then we organize events and we host small seminars or workshops or trainings locally with other NGOs or simply corporate clients. And these three things, besides the last one, which is more into the field of making the foundation more financially sustainable, the volunteering in the training courses and exchanges are the main non-profit work, and we also do our best to reach out to the local youth in higher education, like 11, 12 graders, or young people in universities, no matter which year, and also young people who are not employed or in education and simply want to experience something new. And in all of this, what I'm sharing, that we use several methods, as I mentioned, non-formal education, experiential learning. But I personally am quite interested, and I got trained into neuro-linguistic programming. I got trained in the coaching methods. I got trained in some other body awareness, body movement and awareness and somatic methods. So somehow I personally, and with my friends and colleagues in the foundation, we use a symbiosis of many things.
Really interesting, a lot of things. And let's go through this. First of all, I would like to, for the listener who doesn't know what is EVS, it's a personal thing that actually is the motivation why I am working with education. The EVS is an international project funded by European Union through the European Commission. It's about volunteering, it's about living abroad, it's about actually changing life. It's kind of a motto of Erasmus, changing life. And for me personally, it happens like that because I started to work with education, with non-formal education, with all what you mentioned, also with personal development, with coaching through my EVS that I did 5 years ago in Croatia. And I have a question for you about, before to go through the approaches that you start to mention about coaching and embodiment and all this, I would like to ask you, how come? What is the force in the universe that drive you to go to be here working with education, sharing with the world your knowledges?
Yeah, that's a very valid question, because sometimes I'm asking myself, and every time I have a different answer for myself. And one of the funny but also quite honest and true answers is that at some point of my life I found myself very much not educated, uneducated, or unskillful, missing a lot of stuff. Because in the high school and then later on in university, I was kind of a good student, not the excellent top, but very close to them. And I was not the worst for sure. But somehow it was so much missing something, this education. And, you know, it was easy to perform and to give them what they wanted. But at some point I ended up dealing with real life, looking for a job, finding a job, being frustrated at a job. Also going through another aspect of life, which is relationships, and I found myself, I'm quite uneducated. I'm failing so much. I'm making so many mistakes. I'm not prepared. And at some point, very similar story like yours. At some point, after having this quite popular nowadays called Burnout, I quit my job, which was a job which I was working with my hobby. Logically, I had to be extremely happy because my hobby was my job, so I was not working at all because I was practicing my hobby. No, I burned out big time. And then during the summer of 2012, I decided to just take time for myself. And I ended up in a training course about personal development. I had no clue what is personal development. And that was 2012, August, in Hungary, I got introduced to something very interesting. I realized that in this training course of 10 days, I learned much more for myself and for people in the world in general than the previous 7 years of education and everything that I was doing as a human. And I got very interested. That led to becoming EVS volunteer there for half year, which led to become a youth worker there for half year, coordinating EVSers. And since then, I simply got hooked in this field that I found myself that, okay, if I'm interested in this field of learning and development and personal development and stuff, I realized that I want to learn a lot and I want to share this learning. So maybe I could call myself an educator. You know? First I was a youth worker, then I was practicing to be facilitating or holding training courses. And at some point I realized that I'm a professional learner and I want to develop this, and what I don't know, I want to learn. And I want to also explore things and to find out things that I don't know, so I can expand even those areas that are quite blind spots for me right now. So somehow in this line of many events of my life, I ended up being founder of the foundation and up until now the main youth worker in the Smokinya Foundation. And yes, it's not easy, definitely it's not easy, but it's much more beneficial than anything else I have done before.
Thank you. Those words resonate a lot with me. And I have another question that is connected with, before to go deeper into the core of the conversation about the methodologies and to share with our listener different approaches, so also information that they can look by themselves, is how much your own path to your own personal learning, it's influencing what you deliver as educator. Because, for example, for myself, what I discovered that was useful for me, it's kind of the core that I use to share with others. That is my personal approach. What I find some in the beginning about working with education, what I find more supporting myself is the core values, the core instruments and approaches that I use. So how much this, like passing through this moment that you mentioned, changing in life, and then facing, finding out about personal development, how much this is connect with what you do now, so the project you use, and also if there is also connection with your formal education, if how you build up your methods and how you build it, like how you build the structure that you use now.
Yes, I never thought in this direction, but I have an answer because it's very spontaneous and it's very clear to me, and it's very honest that look, I would not stand up and claim that I can show, explain, or train people in rocket science. I have very, very basic knowledge, close to none regarding rocket science. So what I am using in my work and my daily life to talk about to people, to train them when I am in the position of trainer, to provide guidance when I'm in the position of youth worker is pretty much coming from my experience, because otherwise I would be a great liar. Probably there are people who are doing it, but for me that would be a lie. And of course, sometimes in different situations it might happen that I am not quite familiar with something, but then if it's important, if it's work related, if other people depend on me for something that I'm not prepared, I make sure to take enough time to prepare myself, to educate myself for whatever that field might be. For not to give a bit clear example, because it's quite abstract what I'm talking right now. Recently I got a call that people who know me, people that we worked before and they're satisfied with my work, they called me and said, hey, there is this organization, they need a facilitator for storytelling, digital storytelling workshop. Can you do that? And I'm not a master, how to say, expert professor of storytelling, but I have been through some courses. I know the logical framework of some of the storytelling approaches, and also to provide this support, because it was a request for support. It's not like a job, but it has to be really strict and really extremely high quality. These people need some support. And having my experience as an educator in the past, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, I definitely could sit down, prepare myself, and give them what they need. So this, I hope, gives some kind of understandable example. Okay, so how come my path? No, is my path influencing what I'm teaching or training or my methods? Short answer, yes. What was the other question? Because I got carried away.
Yeah, it's we're also passing now to the like specific methodologies, because I get your point about the why you do it, and it's really nice about the personal motivation. It was like about how the education that you received when you were facing this changing, how this is affecting the approaches that you use now. So how this is connected with what you deliver now as educator.
Yes, so it's yes, definitely it's affecting a lot. What I have gone through life up until now is affecting my methods and my approaches. And I remembered that you also asked that there was a point about my education. My formal education is not related to what I do. I am Bachelor of History without the profile to be a teacher. I didn't choose that profile, so I cannot be even a teacher. I could be a researcher, for example. And I'm not using this since I graduated. Still, I'm super happy and grateful because in the studies of history, I learned some of the how to say, research skills, that if something is missing as an information, or if I'm curious about a question or a topic or a problem, during my studies of history, we were trained how to go into the library and find whatever we are missing, whatever we want to learn. And of course, nowadays it's even much way easier with the internet and all these platforms. Knowledge and information can be easily shared and found online. And besides this, I have a Master of Rhetoric, or public speaking, which was quite a formal program, because for 3 semesters we didn't deliver not a single one speech in the Masters of Public Speaking or Rhetoric, the ancient art of rhetoric, which was quite weird. And still what I learned many things there, and I also found out that even though formally I'm not using this education and this diploma for what I do now, actually a lot of what I'm doing currently in my life, in my career, is related to communication and to being convincing and to transferring messages, to manage projects, people, things, and it takes a lot of communication. And actually, in one way or another, my secondary education, my master's degree, it's quite related to what I do, because it's all about communication and transferring messages and making things clear. Besides this, in my work, in my methods, I like to use a lot of examples from what I have been through in my life. For example, my moments of burnout, my moments of being happy and close to depression or very deep loneliness, and because this I can talk about this. I have experience, and I have also a path going down, going up, maybe going down again, and I can give some examples. And of course, my examples are not the ultimate, or they are not exhaustive examples, but I feel how to say, I feel that it is a field that I can share something from first hand, from my experience, from my feelings and emotions. Because many times I also sometimes go to workshops where I am a participant, and it's very visible, and also from high school or elementary school, high school, university years, it's very much visible when people were theoretically educated but practically not. And yeah, I try to stay on the practice level, speaking about what I know and what I have experienced, and keeping my mouth shut for things that I have not experienced and I don't know.
I believe what you just mentioned, it can be also a way to connect with the participants, to build a human connection, a relationship, not only as a trainer participant, but also human to human. Because one of my core assumptions about education is that education happens when there is interest from the other side, and part of the job of the educator is also build up the situation to build this interest. So share personal experience can be one way to work on this. Let's go now to the what you do. We start with the why, and then the how, then we are going to the what. So also as a trainer, you mentioned freelance trainer, working with, you mentioned coaching, NLP, and then so if you want to give a description about the approaches and the methodologies that you use as an educator.
Yeah. One of the main things that I use a lot, and of course it's never only one thing, somehow it's very natural that, at least for me, maybe for some people, they just focus and use one thing. But for me, it's very natural that all the time it's a mix of many methods and approaches. But one of the main things is NLP, because some years ago, I found this abbreviation. I had no clue what is it. It was 2012-13. Then I started reading books. I found out who were the founders of this. Then I found a lot of information. I read a lot of information. I listened to a lot of information. I was watching to a lot of information. And I was practicing to get some embodied experience with it. And I found that it's something very powerful, very pragmatic, and very much working. There is a little bit of risk there. NLP is quite, how to say, what was the proper English word? Notorious or famous with a bit of negative connotation in Central and Eastern Europe. It's regarded as some mind control tool for manipulation, I don't know what. And possibly, yeah, maybe some people can use it for this not so ethical purposes or goals. But for me, as someone who has studied it from the source, from the people who developed it, I learned it as something that is very down to earth. It's a method for effective communication. And it is, by definition, NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, is the study of subjective experience. How come in the same situation, if there are, for example, 3 people going to the same situation, let's say 3 people on a bus stop, and then a bus comes, it stops, people continues. And then if you ask these 5 people what happened, you will hear 5 different stories. Coaching right now is popular, like life coaching, is executive coaching. It also came a lot along the time of when NLP was shaped as a method, maybe not a science yet, but as a method. And nowadays, how coaching is popular around the world, at least for me, it's coming together with this neuro-linguistic programming. So these are 2 very basic methods that I like and I use on a very down-to-earth level, and also to see from what I know from those 2 methods what would work for the individual or the group with whom I work. What else do I work? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I like, for me it's very powerful, it works a lot for me. And also in order to reach out to more of the people who are there in the room or whatever the context is when I'm a trainer or in charge of the educational process, I use body movement. Body movements can have many, a spectrum of names. It could be ecstatic dancing, it could be called yoga or contemporary dance, or simply Osho meditation, or I don't know. There are many, there's a huge spectrum in it. I'm using a combination of very, very basic exercises from contemporary dance and contact improvisation, and also few things from active or dynamic meditation, combined with some a bit weird sounding, but I find very beautiful practice, this ecstatic dancing or 5 rhythms method, which was developed by one American woman some 20-30 years ago. So these are the main ones, and yeah, along with that, I can list a few others which are not so, how to say, I don't use them very often, but I like a few concepts from them. And those concepts somehow are also a driving force or a point of view for me to approach the learning process. One of them is Feldenkrais. It's a method for healing body injuries or doing therapy to the body through very, very, very basic movements. Pretty much Feldenkrais, it is a person who discovered that there could be achieved a huge difference in people's feeling of their body and healing some problems in their body, for example, a shoulder or a back pain, through simply using very, very basic moves like little babies do. And one of the concepts there that I like and I use a lot is that to do a movement, to do a small change with effortlessly, without much effort to turn or lift your shoulder a little bit, just without becoming really stiff, but effortlessly. Okay, I'm going too much into it. But yeah, this concept of doing things and practicing and going through life challenges effortlessly, it's a very mind-blowing for me. And of course, it's not easy all the time, and sometimes it's not even possible, but it's a reminder for me. And what else? Okay, let's stay with this.
Yeah, it was
overcrowd.
It was already a lot of information, and again, I understand your point about working with the body, working with the body movement, body awareness. It's also part of my job, and I personally find the most important part in working with the body is that sometimes the body and the mind are disconnected. So our mind says something, and then the body say another thing. So working with the body, we can a bit bypass what the thinker level, what the brain is doing, what the brain is telling to us, but go to the core of what is the body, connect with emotion, connect with the internal state. And I like this point. And I believe, I know you, so I believe it's similar things with your job. Also, yeah, interesting about the concept about the effortless in Feldenkrais. I actually heard it, I tried, but I never went deep into, so a nice insight. Okay, so to close this talk, before to close, for all our listeners, feel free to contact us. We're gonna put as a link in the post the website of the foundation. You can also, if you want to ask more information about all these approaches, I believe you can approach us or Tisha, so we can further discover more and discuss more about this content. Because I believe that education is something free and open for everybody, so more people are used to find information, share it more, it's working, it having an impact, this world, having some results in the society. And as a closing, I would like to ask you, what is your wish for the future as educator? What do you aim to work with education in both as a organization, as individual, or as also in the community with knowing other educators? What is your next goal, next objective connect with education?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, before I answer, I also wanted to say my idea or my perception of education, that education is pretty much life, or life is education, because at some point I realized that there is no school, no university, no upbringing, or I don't know, there is no right way, there is no complete way. And pretty much education is so important, and it's ongoing all life long. So having this in mind, I would send a wish to myself and to you and to our audience and to everyone else, that to always stay curious and ask questions, to always be interested rather than trying to be interesting, because there is a huge difference between these two things: being interested in life, in others, in yourself, or trying to be interesting for others and playing out, I don't know, all kinds of clowny stuff. I also wish to all of us and everyone and anyone to continue grabbing different challenges and opportunities only for the sake of testing and trying and expanding their perception and their knowledge and their understanding. As I mentioned at the beginning, I myself, with my team in the Smokinya Foundation, we recently, just out of looking for an office, we jumped into something much bigger, like running a place as a cafe, and this is very, very different stuff from what we've been doing now. But no matter how a bit stressful and a bit scary it is, I'm super excited and super interested in, I'm going to learn so many new things. Actually, since we took on this challenge, I started sleeping better and faster. Now, I used to, in this corona pandemic, blah, 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 I couldn't wake up until 8:30, sometimes until 9, which is quite unusual for me. And when I wake up, it was as if I was awake. And now we have this new something in development, and we're learning a lot every day how it goes. I wake up at 6:30, sometimes at 6, sometimes even 5:30, quite fresh and ready to, okay, I want to do this, have breakfast, coffee, and go and start doing stuff. Go fix this wall, paint something and stuff like that. So I really, really wish for everyone to stay curious and to be interested in what is out there that can be still embraced, and digest it in a way to develop me personally, but also to develop our reach of friends and family and people we interact with, and also the community and the society. So be curious and expand, learn.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the time. Thank you for all the sharing. And for our listener, the appointment is next week with another podcast, Learn Well by New Wellness Education, another international guest sharing about education, wellness, and well-being. Thank you and bye.